Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at some pretty unsettling stuff. Actually, it's a new Android malware that's called FireScam, and I think you're going to find it pretty interesting. So, picture this: you're trying to get Telegram Premium, right? And you download what you think is the app, but instead of getting those cool extra features, you get hit with malware. And this malware is designed to just steal everything from your logins to your credit card info. It's pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, it is. It really shows you that things aren't always what they seem, even in the digital world.
For sure. And what makes FireScam so interesting is the way it spreads. We're not talking about shady app stores or anything like that. This malware is hiding in plain sight on phishing websites that look exactly like Rustore.
Right, Rustore being Russia's alternative to Google Play and Apple's App Store.
Yeah.
They launched it back in 2022 when those platforms became a little less accessible over there.
Gotcha. So these attackers are being pretty clever, huh?
Yeah, they're exploiting the trust that users have in platforms like GitHub, where these fake Rustore pages are hosted.
So you might think you're on a familiar platform, downloading a safe app, but really you're stepping right into a trap.
Exactly. That's what makes this so sneaky. And the malware itself uses a two-step process to actually infect your device.
Oh, really? So how's it work?
So first you download what looks like a totally harmless app called getappssru.appk. But this app is actually a dropper.
A dropper? What's that?
Well, it's disguised using this tool called DexGuard.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard for security software to detect the bad code.
Oh, so it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Exactly. You got it. And once that getappsru is installed, it downloads the actual malware, which is disguised as telegrampremium.appk.
Oh, I see what they did there. They're playing on people's desires to get, those premium features. Everybody wants the cool stuff, right? But instead of getting the premium features, it asks for a ton of permissions on your phone, like access to your notifications, clipboard SMS messages, and more.
Yeah, it's basically like asking for the keys to the kingdom. And once it has those permissions, FireScam can start doing some serious damage.
Like what? What does it do?
It can steal your login credentials through a fake Telegram login page. So it captures your username and password.
Okay, so that's already pretty bad, but does it stop there?
Oh, it gets worse. FireScam goes way beyond just stealing your logins. It actually gathers a whole bunch of data, passwords, financial information, even anything that you copy and paste. And it sends all of it to a Firebase real-time database.
Wow, so it's like a digital vacuum cleaner for your personal info. But what's interesting? You mentioned earlier how this data is actually organized. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, what's really concerning is that FireScam doesn't just grab data randomly. It actually categorizes what it steals, which shows that they're using a very targeted approach. This isn't just some random malware. It's very methodical.
That's a little unsettling. It seems like they're going beyond just, grabbing whatever they can get their hands on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it leads to some pretty big questions like, what are they actually doing with all this data? And what happens to it once it leaves that Firebase database?
Yeah, those are great questions. And I think we need to take a closer look at those. So let's take a quick break and then we'll dig into all of that and we'll talk more about what people can do to protect themselves. Stay with us. So we know that FireScam is pretty sophisticated, and it's designed to steal a lot more than just your logins. But the question is, what happens to all that data? Like once they've actually stolen it?
Yeah, that's where things get kind of murky. The cybersecurity firm, Cyfirma, the one that actually discovered FireScam, they found that the data is only stored temporarily on the Firebase database.
Okay, so like a temporary holding cell for stolen goods. But where does it go after that?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
I mean, we can speculate, I guess. It's highly likely that they're filtering it
Exactly.
and then moving it to a more secure location.
For later use, I'm assuming.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you're one of the attackers behind FireScam. Okay, you've got all this data, passwords, financial info, even people's clipboard history. What would you do with it?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is selling it, right? Like on the dark web.
Oh, absolutely. There's a huge market for that kind of information.
So identity theft is definitely a concern then.
Big time. And it goes way beyond just draining bank accounts or opening credit cards in someone else's name.
So what else could they do with it?
Think about it. They could use it for much more targeted attacks.
Like, what do you mean?
I mean, if you have someone's passwords and, their online habits, you can craft some really convincing phishing emails. Ones that people are more likely to actually fall for.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's scary. And what about impersonating them online?
Oh, yeah. They could totally do that, too. Damage their reputation, use their accounts for malicious purposes, It's really dangerous.
And to make matters worse, FireScam can receive commands in real time from the attackers, so it's not just passively stealing data.
It's almost like a remote-controlled spy, you know, that they've planted on your device.
So they could download even more malware.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they could change what information FireScam is actually targeting. It's constantly evolving.
Wow, it's kind of creepy how much control they have once they get this malware on your phone. But speaking of control, do we have any idea who's actually behind FireScam?
Unfortunately, not yet. The researchers haven't been able to pinpoint who exactly is responsible, but based on everything we know,
Like what?
the complexity of the operation, the techniques they're using, the fact that they're targeting users on a Russian app store, it all points to a pretty sophisticated operation.
So we're not talking about some amateur hacker working out of their basement.
Definitely not. It's got to be a well-funded group with a lot of experience.
So who could it be?
What could be a cybercriminal gang? Just looking to make some money?
Yeah.
Or, considering the whole geopolitical situation, it could even be state-sponsored?
Like a government. Seriously.
Possibly.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
It really does sound like something out of a spy movie. You know? You've got this malicious code disguised as a popular app. It's hosted on a trusted platform. It steals everything it can. Then the data disappears. Who knows where it goes or what they do with it?
It really highlights the dark side of the digital world. Right? It's full of opportunities. But there are definitely some serious risks involved.
And it's so important to understand those risks so that we can protect ourselves.
100%. So let's talk about that. What can people actually do to stay safe? Because I know everyone's listening thinking, okay, how do I avoid becoming a FireScam victim?
Right. We need to give people some practical advice, something they can actually use to protect themselves. All right, so let's talk about staying safe. What can our listeners actually do to protect themselves from FireScam? Or even, other similar threats?
Well, the biggest thing is being careful about where you download apps from. Stick to the official app stores whenever you can, like Google Play or Apple's App Store.
Yeah, that makes sense. But what about people in Russia who are using Rustore? How can they tell if a website is the real deal or one of those fake sites trying to spread FireScam?
That's a good question. The most important thing is to pay really close attention to the URL, look for misspellings, anything that seems a little bit off, and always double check that the website has a valid security certificate.
So how can people tell if it has one of those?
You'll usually see a little padlock icon in the address bar.
Okay, so double check that URL and look for that padlock. Gotcha.
Yeah.
What about app permissions? I mean, we talked about how FireScam asks for a lot of access to your phone. Is that something people should watch out for?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Be wary of any app that wants a ton of permissions, especially if those permissions don't seem related to what the app is supposed to do.
So like if a messaging app wants access to your contacts, location, microphone camera, your entire photo gallery, that's a red flag.
Exactly. Think about what the app is asking for and whether it really needs all that stuff to work.
That's a good point. Anything else our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, keeping your phone's operating system and security software up to date is really important.
Yeah, don't ignore those update notifications.
Right. Because those updates often include patches for vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot harder for malware to get on your device.
Makes sense. And it's not just about installing updates, right? It's also about being a little skeptical.
Exactly. If something seems too good to be true, like finding a free version of a paid app, it probably is,
Right. So stay informed, be cautious, don't be afraid to question things.
Exactly. Because cybersecurity is an ever-changing landscape. The bad guys are always coming up with new ways to try and trick people.
So we all need to stay vigilant and keep learning about the new threats.
Yeah, the more you know about how these threats work, the better you'll be at avoiding them.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. I think it's really eye-opening to see just how sophisticated these malware attacks are becoming.
Yeah, they can exploit our trust.
Yeah.
And our desire for convenience.
Yeah.
You
It's scary. And I think it's a good reminder that we all need to be doing our part to stay safe online.
Absolutely. And it's not as hard as you might think. Just by staying informed, being cautious, following some basic best practices, we can significantly reduce our risk of becoming a victim.
So to sum it up, FireScam is a serious threat, but it's not impossible to avoid. By understanding how it works and taking steps to protect ourselves, we can all stay safe.
Knowledge is power. The more we learn about cybersecurity, the better off we'll be.
Great advice. And for our listeners who want to learn more, we'll have links to some resources in the show notes. In the meantime, stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay safe.